Big day, big week inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Ohio State wrapping up the third week of spring practice, third of 4 weeks. Next week is the, of course, spring game. That's Mick Walker. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Let's talk about it. Talked to the secondary earlier in the week. We're talking to offensive linemen today, a lot of them. Tyler Bowen, kind of no-nonsense press conference, just rapid-fire questions about each of these guys on this offensive line. The name of the game right now, though, is flexibility. They're cross-training. They're doing a lot of things, moving guys around, trying to find the best five. What'd you take away from hearing from the head offensive line coach?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of college football coaches, some even at Ohio State now, that kind of will have a tendency to kind of ramble or just kind of just speak out a lot when they're asked a question. Tyler Bowen was not that guy. If you asked him a question, he gave you an answer, and we moved on to the next question. He had short answers to a handful of questions, but I was kind of impressed with how he talked about everything. That the openness, without giving a ton away, he was pretty open about the whole process that they're going through with trying to figure out who's going to start at tackles, the flexibility to have a guard. Josh Padilla, is he emerging at center? Different types of things that he was posed about, and he gave pretty honest answers without giving away the actual, like, Josh Padilla is going to be our backup center or anything like that.
Yeah, it was interesting. One of the guys that's kind of the story of today is Austin Saraveld, who is playing guard. He's playing tackle. I had somebody tell me that he's the best offensive lineman on the team, which is, kind of crazy to say considering we don't know where he's going to play, but he's going to play.
Yeah.
I think he's creeping into that starting lineup. I think you're starting to see that, emerge. And not that he wasn't already, but man, like, the buzz around him is really positive right now. Luke Montgomery seems to be another guy who just keeps impressing. And Carson Hinsman, I guess the bottom line that we're getting to there is the interior of this offensive line, Mick, is very well set. And not that that's like the starters right there, but man, like, it's hard to ignore the experience that they have, the personalities that they have, the physicality that they have, and the national championship rings that they have in those starting roles that they can now show, hey, we head into this spring and into this offseason as like the strength of this offense.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time for this interior offensive line. And I think you could tell a little bit that Tyler Bowen was excited when talking about that interior.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times where coaches speak and they're scared because they don't have options. I think he speaks very openly about how they do have options. And at that point, it's just about getting your best five on the field, as most offensive line coaches will tell you. And I think he has the option of whether that's Tager Shabola or Austin Saraveld at guard or tackle or any of those guys, flexing them in and out. Those are two guys, like you said, that have already proved that they can play at Ohio State. Luke Montgomery proved it down the stretch last year. Carson Hinsman proved it as well, like 2 seasons ago for parts of it, and then last season at the end of the season. So he has options. And then you start talking about the transfer offensive tackles who kind of came in today, and we got to speak with them for the first time.
Yeah, talked to every offensive lineman here except for Tager Shabola. It's kind of interesting. But he's
an academic man.
The Armstrong twins coming out and speaking for the first time, and you got to kind of see a little bit about what they're about. We talked to Ian Moore, who's progressing, and Tyler Bowen started talking about him, and one of the first things he said was the inconsistencies. Then he said, well, everybody's been inconsistent, but you get the sense that they like where Ian's at, but he needs to put it together a little bit more. And you can start to piece together, not depth charts. We're nowhere near that. And Tyler Bowen was asked straight up, like, do you have 1 or 2 starters that you can tell us about? And he said, no, we're not there right now. We're not going to get into that. We're just progressing. It's spring ball. You got spring, you got summer workouts, you got fall camp. Texas is still in 150 some days. Like, there's still time to figure all this out. But like, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like the offensive line days of, hey, the depth is so concerning that Ryan Day's talking about the second team, not even having a second team to put out there. Like at the beginning of last year where he was saying those kind of things about 2023, it's just not that anymore. There's multiple tackle options. Ethan Onyanwa is starting to, make some moves and become, part of all of this. Phillip Daniels is, talked to somebody today that said they're really excited about Phillip. He gives them, gives Ohio State something there at tackle. The Ian Moore is coming along. You've got the Armstrongs that are coming along and adding their weight. Even Luke Montgomery said that Jake Cook has been quietly but surely, like, impressive, better than he should be. So, like, I really like where this offensive line is right now. Do they have their starting five? No. Is there still some concerns about whether Daniels translates to a full-time starter, whether Onyanwa is the guy at left tackle and he can translate from Rice all the way up to Ohio State? Yeah, there's questions there. But, man, like, it's hard not to get excited about the prospects of what this offensive line can be, because the good news is there is still 150 some days until they do play Texas.
Yeah, and it's good to see these guys. Obviously, we're going to see more on Saturday when we come back for the Student Appreciation Day practice,
Super excited about that.
where we get to have a large viewing session. But, we always try to kind of talk about or see what's going on after practice. And Ethan Oniano was the first person to speak with the media today, full pads on, went through his interview. After that, went down to the far corner where they have some the differences, which are the thing made up by Anthony Schlegel, former Ohio State linebacker down there. He went down there and was just hitting the sled, hitting the bag that they have down there for about a good 20, 30 minutes after he did his full interview session. So after cooled down, still had his pads on, went down and got more work in. So while I don't know if he's perfectly there at left tackle yet, he's obviously embraced the job of trying to get to there. I think he's done well. Like Tyler Bowen said, he's had some inconsistencies, but he's flashed as well. Same with Ian Moore and all those type of guys. Overall, I was really impressed with a lot of the freshmen and the young guys as well. Like you mentioned, Ricardo Lowe, I caught up with him a little bit. Obviously, knew him.
Lost some weight?
Yeah, know him from recruiting a decent bit. Obviously, Ethan Onyama lost 30 pounds, he said too. But Carter even talked about it, like being listed at the 340 he was when we kind of got that first spring roster. I was like, oh, he's really big. He looks thinner, and he even admitted to me, he was like, yeah, during the bowl run, we're not working out a ton. We're doing a little bit of lifting. We're not practicing a ton, but early in release, we're really just eating with the team and hanging out. So when you eat with Ohio State's team, you're gonna get bigger. Like that's how a lot of these guys works. And so he's cutting down. Like
he said he's at 315 or
yeah,
320
he's
now?
working through it. And like I think that's just kind of the target rate. Gabe Van Sickle talked about being at 315. I think Javon McFadden's kind of climbing up there. Overall, I was really impressed with a lot of these guys, even though they might not get on the field. Just kind of talking to them, hearing them speak about Tyler Bowen and the way that this whole offensive line has kind of approached like going into the season. It's a pretty impressive group.
Yeah, I think the word that I would use right now for this offensive line is healthy. Not health as in like physical health, nobody's in boots or anything like that. Like they are healthy across the board right now, but healthy as in like there's some depth there. They're building depth. They're cross-training these guys to make sure that they have depth. Tyler Bowen talked about in the NFL, there's only 8 or 9 offensive linemen that dress. You got to be able to do multiple things. They're concerned about the 105. They want all these guys to do multiple things. So Luke Montgomery's playing at center a little bit. Carson Hinsman, we know he can play guard. We watched in the Penn State game. Austin Sarabald can play anything you ask him except for center, which I wouldn't even doubt that he could play center if you gave him a little bit of chances to. The only guy that Ryan Day said isn't cross-training is Onyanwa, who's stuck at tackle. But, I think that's fair that he's stuck at tackle. He's massive. He just shouldn't play guard.
So, and he needs the reps there.
Yeah, he definitely does. So, I think the word that I use coming out of this day, as we're 9 days away from the spring game now, is healthy. Because it's just a healthy, good-looking room that can start to mold itself into what Ohio State needs it to be. And I think that's where we kind of wrap this thing up as Dom Taveri's over there hitting the sled for some reason. You never know what Dom's going to do in here. Last thing, we'll get to it at the very end here. Simeon Caldwell, 4-star safety, commits to Ohio State. What's the rub on that?
Another big one for Matt Guerrero, obviously Tim Walton. That's Tim Walton's nephew is Simeon Caldwell, the 4-star safety out of the Jacksonville Bull School. So family ties helping the Buckeyes there. Where Matt Guerrero did a lot of work. Matt Guerrero was the only one that went down and saw him in January during the contact period. Made sure to add that stop because mainly Matt Guerrero was in the East Coast and Louisiana and down in Mississippi, seeing Braylon Womack and Blaine Bradford, who committed earlier this week. Obviously, Braylon Womack will be back this season. Will be back this weekend, and then you still have a guy like Donovan Webb. But now I think Ohio State wanted 2 to 3 safeties. They have 2 of them, 2 top 100 safeties, and now you go, can we get a Braylon Womack? Can we keep the Donovan Webb warm enough until we figure out what's going on with Braylon Womack? And then from there on, there's going to be more guys on campus this weekend. I think they had some other guys on here today. Khalil Terry is a 2027 safety committed to Michigan State from California. He spent a lot of time with Matt Guerrero today. So they got 2 already in 2026, and they're working to find some in 2027.
It's good time on the Ohio State recruiting trail. They are red hot on the trail and climbing those rankings. You're going to continue to see that from the Buckeyes. And then obviously this summer, a whole wrench gets thrown into everything with the rev sharing and the house settlement, and we'll see how that affects recruiting. But for now, it's a good time on the trail for Ohio State, no matter how you slice it. It's a good day to be Matt Guerrero because now he's got 2 safeties committed into the class of 2026. And it's a good day to be Tyler Bowen because he gave us a lot of updates on the Ohio State offensive line. We're going to have a lot of that coverage over at lettermenrow.com. Go to lettermenrow.com right now. Get all of that coverage. $1 for your first week. That's a full week of recruiting coverage. It's a full week of spring practice coverage leading into the spring game for just $1. That's Mick Walker right there. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com. Like the video below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com.